How one can know whether his Eemaan is strong or weak, and what steps should be taken in improving my Eemaan. And if one who listens about the punishment of hellfire and not feeling afraid of it, but worries about other things, what is the strength of his Eemaan? The question posed by Revert, and he's asking that how will a person come to know whether his Eemaan is strong or weak? And what steps should be taken to improve the Eemaan? And the last part is that if a person hears and knows about the punishment of hellfire and yet is not worried about that and worried about the worldly things, then what is his status? Regarding the first part of the question, that how does one come to know that his Eemaan is strong? A person, when he keeps on following the teachings of Quran and Sahih Hadith, the more he follows, he realizes that his Eemaan is strong. For example, when he goes out, a Muslimah knows that she should wear the hijab. The outside world may not be doing hijab. She is doing hijab. You know that the Eemaan is strong. We know that people do wrong things. They cheat. You are not cheating. People tell lies. You don't lie. You are honest. And the more you follow the Quran and Sahih Hadith, you come to know Eemaan is strong. How do you increase your Eemaan? Well, the best way to increase your Eemaan is to read the translation of the Quran, read the translation of the Hadith of the beloved Prophet ﷺ, read the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, read the Seerah of the Khulafa Rashidin, of the Sahabas. When you look at the lifestyle, you are empowered. You realize that how strong they were in Eemaan and how weak we are in Eemaan. So if you read the stories of the Sahabas, your Eemaan increases. I'd like to give you one incident. That once there was a person who comes and tells the Prophet that the neighbor that is there is not allowing him to build the boundary wall of the house because the tree is in between. So the Prophet tells the neighbor that if you give that one tree and allow him to build his boundary wall, I will give you a tree in Jannah. And he refuses. He doesn't agree. So when one of the Sahaba, Abu Darda, he hears about this, he goes and asks the Prophet that if I get that tree and see to it, give it to him, will I get a tree in Jannah? The Prophet said, yes, why not? So he goes and tells that neighbor that, do you know who I am? He said, no. He says, I am Abu Darda, who owns the biggest and the most precious garden of dates in Medina. So it is, of course, who does not know you? Then he says that, will you give me this tree which is coming in between your neighbor, boundary wall? And for that, in exchange of that tree, I will give you my complete garden of dates, which is the best in Medina. The man says, are you crazy? For my one tree, you will give me the full garden, which is the best in Medina? He says, yes. And the person agrees. Abu Darda comes back home and tells his wife that today I have done a great deal, an excellent deal. The wife asks, what did you do? So he narrates the story about that tree. And he tells his wife that I bought that tree, that we gave her the tree in Jannah in exchange for the full garden that we have in Medina. So the wife says, what excellent deal. In today's world, if suppose you have such a big garden and you want to buy the tree, today's wife will tell you, you're a fool. Why did you give the full garden? You would have given 25% of the garden, or you should have given 50% of the garden. And surely that man would have agreed. Even if you give 25% of the garden, you would have given that one tree. But look at the Eemaan. The wife says, what a deal. That means both of them, the husband and wife, they didn't want even an out of doubt that the person will refuse, because they wanted Jannah. And the hadith tells us that for the rest of the life, they lived a poor life. But they lived a very happy life because they know that the Prophet had promised them paradise. So if you hear the stories of the Sahabas, how they lived, how they sacrificed, how they helped each other, your Eemaan increases. And it gives us the feeling that what we are doing, nothing. Nothing. And we know that at the time of jihad, when the Prophet told the Sahabas that, what do you want to contribute? And Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, comes and he gives the large wealth to the Prophet. And the Prophet asks him that, what have you left home? So he says, I have left half my wealth at home and half I am giving in charity for jihad. After that, later on, Hazrat Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, he comes and he gives his wealth to the Prophet. And the Prophet asks him, what have you left home? So he said, I have given all my wealth and I have left Allah and His Rasul at home to take care of us. Imagine what Eemaan. Imagine giving his complete wealth in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we hear these stories, it increases our Eemaan. It makes us feel so small that we can't even contribute to the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can't even give charity. If you read the lifestyle, the seerah of the Sahaba, of the Khulafa Rashidin, of the Prophets, we are nowhere. So if you read the story, your Eemaan increases. If you read the Quran, the translation, your Eemaan increases. And you come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your ibadah increases. Your salah increases. Your sawm increases. Your fasting, your charity, your zakat. All these things, these are signs. And when we realize that Eemaan is increased, we have peace of mind. Wealth cannot buy peace of mind. When you have peace of mind, that mashallah, inshallah, we are following Allah and His Rasul. And inshallah, we will be raised in Jannah with Allah and His Rasul. As the Prophet said, that you will be raised with the people who you love. So that time the Sahaba were so happy. They said, we may not be good in deeds, they were the best. After the Anbiyas, the people who are the most blessed and the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the Sahabas. Among the Sahaba, the Khulafa Rashidin, number one. Among the Khulafa Rashidin, Hazrat Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, he is number one. Then Hazrat Umar. If you hear these stories and read the lifestyle of the Prophet and the Sahabas, you will realize that we are living in air condition, we have all the facility, and yet we crib, yet we don't follow the Sunnah, yet we don't follow the things that we're supposed to do. And if you read how did the Ansar, the people of Medina, the Sahabas of Medina, helped the Sahabas, the Muhajir, who migrated from Makkah to Medina, and the stories, it's phenomenal. So the more you read the seerah of the Prophet, of the Sahabas, your Eemaan will increase, your practice will increase, and inshallah, your peace of mind will increase. And you are more secured that Allah will give you the best in this world as well as the Akhirah.